Hello everyone, welcome to this Thrive Tribe video conversation. I'm Paul Mallory from the Thrive Tribe, and I'm delighted to welcome Heena Modi, founder of PlantShift at plantshift.com. Welcome, Heena.
Welcome, thank you.
Lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us from your lockdown in London. Yes. Are you in London?
Indeed.
You are in London, right? And Heena is a vegan coach, something I need help with. I'm sure a lot of people do, so I'm really keen to get some good tips from you today. I believe you've also written a vegan recipe book, is that right?
Yes, I have.
Recipes. Yeah. I'm no good with recipes. You've got to help me. You've been vegan since 2008, according to your website, which I make about 12 years now.
Yeah.
And you follow a plant-based lifestyle, and you're helping people to make the shift by coaching. So absolutely core Thrive Tribe territory here. So welcome, Heena, and tell us a little bit more about your journey to veganism and to PlantShift. What caused you to start it?
So I'm going to take you back to when I was 11.
Okay.
So basically, my mum and so it was me, mum and dad. I didn't have any siblings, or don't have any siblings. And from what I understand, my dad used to eat meat, but not in the home, because mum was like pure vegetarian. You know, I don't know. Maybe he respected her for it, or maybe she didn't let him. I don't know. But so that was that. But when I was at babysitters, or when I was at school and having school dinners and stuff, I used to have a bit of meat here and there. I don't remember what it was or anything, and eggs also. And I definitely didn't have it at home. And then there was one point when mum did used to make eggs for me at home, and she cracked it open and it must have been a bad egg. And I just saw her heaving over the sink, and I felt so bad. And actually, we moved when I was 7, so that must have been when I was 6 or something. And I remember then, like, in my head, I vowed some way not to have eggs in the home anymore, but I still carried on having this meat and eggs outside. And then I'm not really sure what happened to me when I was 11, but I don't remember there being a specific catalyst, like religion or a conversation with someone or anything, but I suddenly decided I didn't agree with killing animals for food. So I stopped eating meat. And I knew that a lot of people didn't eat eggs, especially in the Indian community. When they say they're vegetarian, they mean pure vegetarian, and that means no eggs either. That's another way they define it, but or label it, I should say. But no one could explain to me why we shouldn't eat eggs. I had all sorts of different conversations with people, different theories, but nothing stuck and nothing made sense. And also it wasn't consistent, so I kept eating eggs. And then basically that all was just the way it was until 2008, when I saw a video about dairy production. And it was by someone very high up in PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, but in India. And she came to a Jain event. Jain is the religion I follow. And she basically, I don't remember her saying anything. I think she just introduced the video and just let the video do all the talking. And I'd never heard about anything to do with, I thought vegetarian was the end of it and there was no violence anywhere else. Yeah. So I was horrified when I saw this film, and I pretty much cried throughout the whole thing. And then basically I remember when it finished, my husband put his arm around me and said, "Shall we go dairy free from tomorrow?" And I was still sobbing, like I hadn't processed it, but he was well ahead of the game. He knew that that's where I would go. So I was like, okay. And then literally we went dairy free overnight. Then I didn't know about honey and wool and leather I knew, and suede, all those other things I wasn't really, silk, all those things I didn't know. So basically I started doing a bit more investigating and then became fully vegan in terms of, I call it vegan by mouth. So in terms of food. And then I started finding out about wool and silk and all those things. And then I became vegan in terms of lifestyle.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I hadn't even thought of that definition, to be honest. So when we were chatting before, we were saying, you know, the definition of vegan and so on, and it may be worth us exploring a little bit, because there's so many angles to this. I asked my daughter, who's very keen, is a committed vegetarian, and is very keen on these issues, and is very big on animal welfare, for example. Yeah. And I said to her, "What should I ask Heena? Give me some difficult questions." And she said, well, ask her about the different reasons for being vegan, you know, because there's so many different angles people come at it from. So already we've touched on, you know, it might be an aspect of somebody's religion, their religious beliefs, that maybe they think animals are sacred or whatever it might be. There's the environmental aspect, of course, that we're hearing about more and more, of the environmental impact of raising animals and so on. the whole animal welfare aspect. And there you're touching on, you know, things I hadn't even considered, like clothing and how does that get to us? I did have a thought along these lines, just for illustration, actually, yesterday. I was walking home from the shops, a rare treat. I went to the shops, and I was walking home from the shops, and I was thinking about Amazon, and I was thinking to myself, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right? So my point is, the consciousness aspect of this is quite challenging, I think, in the sense of, like you were saying, until you saw the film, it hadn't really entered your consciousness, and you hadn't really thought about the issues behind it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that yesterday with Amazon. I don't know whether Amazon is a good thing or a bad thing, by which I mean people delivering parcels to houses. Well, it saves me driving somewhere to get something. So there is a benefit. And they would have had to ship it to a shop where I would have had to drive to get it. So is it better that it comes straight? Have I saved? Am I a net saver by using it? I just don't know, you know. So it just struck me as one of those things I'm not very conscious about. And I would like to investigate more. And I think it's in that sort of territory, don't you, where it's about being conscious of what we're doing and kind of assuming that everything we do has an impact.
Yes.
Is that the way you feel about it?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think everything we do has an impact, whether it's the invisible stuff that are our thoughts. I think even that has an impact to what we say, to what we do. And, you know, going back to what you mentioned about the reason people go vegan. So the environmental, yes. There are some religions traditionally, like Rastafarians, who are vegan. There are other religions who now, because they're becoming aware of the processes involved with dairy and honey and all these other things, are now beginning to advocate veganism. And so that's the religious and the environmental, and then you've got ethics, nothing to do with religion, just I don't agree with it, I don't think it's right, whatever. You've also got health issues. There are a lot of people who are turning towards veganism to either reverse or prevent certain health issues. There are other people who do it because they've got allergies. So it's not necessarily a choice, you know, it's to prevent them feeling unwell. It's amazing. And depending on your motivation, I think your motivation will drive whether how seriously you take it and whether you actually even take that step. Because I know someone who's allergic to dairy, intolerant, let's say, not allergic, but she will still eat it because she loves it, and then she's ill, like she's unwell, she's in the bathroom, whatever, but she can't.
That's the dairy equivalent of a hangover.
There you go. Yes.
I'm a non-drinker, so
same.
I don't have issues with hangovers, but it's in that territory, isn't it? It's the price you have to pay.
Yeah, quite. And you know before you start that that's going to happen, but whatever, you do it anyway because the hook.
How strange. As long as they're happy. And also to add to your list, really, sort of health and fitness. I was sharing with you earlier that since we got locked down, you know, I've had probably 3 months now of being vegan. Not actually because I wanted to go vegan, but because I wanted to lose some weight and I wanted to eat healthily. And so to me, I rightly or wrongly, I appreciate your advice on it. To me, healthy always equates to fresh vegetables. That's where my mind goes when I think healthy. And I also have adopted the approach of I can eat as much as I want as long as I'm eating the right stuff, because it can only do me good, not bad. And I've lost almost, this is very English for anyone abroad, 2 stone. I don't know how many pounds.
Yeah, I'm good with that, but yeah.
So we're in England, so 2 stone. But quite a sizable amount of tummy has gone as a result of being quite disciplined with my eating. And also avoiding sugar, processed sugar, which I have a sort of, not an intolerance to, but I have a susceptibility to having high sugar levels. Mainly because I like eating bags of sweets. So that's all got, so the sugar's gone, just eating vegetables and running. And 2 stone in 4 months. So there we are, there's a super diet plan.
And it's interesting because you mentioned 2 things that I forgot. One is weight loss, but a lot of people do go vegan for weight loss. And the other thing is recovery. I don't know if you've seen, there's a documentary called Game Changers. It's on Netflix, on YouTube, it's on various places. So there, I mean, there's, without getting into it, because it's hard to actually summarize that in a few minutes, but one of the biggest things that one of the biggest conclusions was that veganism, one, doesn't stop you bulking up and doing all the rest of it if you wanted to, but it also aids recovery from like for athletes and stuff. It actually makes them recover quicker. So it's quite amazing. So the fact that you're running made me remember that.
And also the other thought that occurs to me was I was recording a video on the subject of physical well-being the other day. I'm by no means an expert, so all I can do is share my experience, right, of what I've tried and what I've found works and doesn't work. But on this subject, sort of physical well-being, I think it's really, I'd be interested to get your take on this. I think it's really, really helpful to adopt the consciousness of what you're putting into your body. Just as simple as think about everything you put in there before you put it in there. You know, Stephen Covey used to talk about there's a gap between stimulus and response. Humans have the ability to pause before they respond. So you see a donut, just before you shove it in your mouth, you have the ability to stop and think about it. And I think just becoming conscious of what we're eating is the first step, don't you? Awareness.
Definitely. And we also touched on being in the present moment earlier before we started the recording. And basically, I think part of that is also to do with this whole thinking about being more aware. So when you're eating, if you're watching TV or I don't know, playing a game or doing something else that's distracting you from what you're actually doing, you're not going to be conscious of how much you're eating. You're not going to be aware of it. You're not going to be thinking, you're just going to be shoveling it in and then probably having too much and getting seconds and thirds and whatever. And then after think, oh, I think I ate too much, or yay, I ate too much, but really it's not yay because it's not good for you.
So hangover.
Quite. So that whole, you know, being mindful, being present would be really good, even if it's a healthy meal. Like just you know, you can still have a conversation. You're not saying you have to focus on every single thing, and you know, but just be there rather than being distracted.
Yes, I think that's right. And also, I just want to say for anybody who hasn't realised yet, you know, processed sugar, it's a drug. It's addictive. There's a reason we eat lots of, and salt as well, actually. There's a reason we eat huge bags of crisps and we eat big packets of sweets, which I'm very susceptible to. I'm conscious that I'm very susceptible to it. So I have to be really disciplined and I have to be careful what I do, because I know that if I open that bag of Haribo, it's going to be gone in 20 minutes time, you know, and it's really, really unhealthy. And it's addictive. So people need to be aware they're taking a drug when they do it. So I think just being conscious, though, makes you're thinking about it as you're doing it. Maybe that one is enough. You know, you can just make those choices in a better way.
And interestingly enough, that consciousness, that awareness will only come if we pause and reflect. Like, so we need to be able to do that. And I think life is quite fast for a lot of people, or busy, and not necessarily because it has to be, but because we just fill our lives with everything. So, and I think one of the silver linings of lockdown is people are realizing that, and they're realizing how much they can strip back and how much time they can, you know, utilize for other things. So if we use that to pause, reflect, then it will make bringing about these new habits much easier.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point you've raised, because it seems to me, so as a guy just started trimming the hedge outside, it always happens when I'm it's not too disruptive.
No, it's all right.
That image you just put into my mind there, I pictured the city of everybody racing about trying to get to the next appointment and so on, and stopping off at Starbucks on the way to get a triple, double, I don't understand coffee, so I drink it. But you know, that's what they do, isn't it? A triple double with a topping of a whatever, and it costs about £5 or something. Strange behaviour. But it just makes me wonder, actually, how much of that behaviour is, you know, what's the cause and what's the effect? Because actually, if you're fueling yourself with drugs like caffeine constantly, like sugar, bags of sweets and crisps and whatever it might be, if you're keeping yourself going, and just adrenaline actually through activity, if you're doing a succession of meetings with no breaks, you're getting high adrenaline. I wonder how much of that causes the behavior, as well as, you know, being coping mechanisms for it. And it's kind of the opposite of being mindful, isn't it?
You know, I'm not sure if you're aware of it. I've done a couple of nutrition courses. And one of the things that we covered in that is that, so you have a craving for whatever your thing is, whether it's sugar or whether it's salt or whatever, you have it, you feel better. And then you crash, because if you've kind of gone up, you've got to come down.
Yeah.
So you crash, so you want it again, repeat. And that's what happens. You just keep doing that. And in the end, it becomes hard for you to know, am I on a crash or am I on a low? Because you then just develop this habit of wanting it, needing it. And then the frequency changes. So you may have needed maybe 1 coffee a day just to wake up and feel like you're alert. And now you need 4, and then you need 7. And, you know, it's just not, it's not good at all. But again, if we don't pause to reflect and realize what we're doing, we're not even aware of those things, let alone being able to change them.
And thank you. Yeah, that's great. And I'd like to add to that as well the notion of habit.
Yes.
Because the other thing I've noticed over the last few weeks, see, I realised that the last few weeks was an opportunity to change some habits, because it was such an unusual period of having to stay indoors and having to stay healthy and keep well and so on. And so I noticed early on that was an opportunity to change some habits. We don't realise, I think, how much we're run by habit. We just do what we do day after day after day, and fundamentally
autopilot.
Exactly the same every day. And so we have to interrupt it somehow. We have to catch ourselves doing these things to say, but is that good for me doing that?
Yeah.
Is that really the right? I know I always do it, but is it the right thing to do? You know, and that's true of what we eat. I think it's true of our exercise habits, whether we choose to get in the car or to walk.
Yeah.
And on, you know, it's, and for me, a big part of thriving actually is not living out of habit. It's something our brains do automatically, so we can't avoid it. But, you know, choosing to not live out a habit and choosing to take different steps than everyone around us, you know, because it's better for us and it results in a better life. So that's absolutely where we are with this discussion with veganism, I think, and whether or not people would benefit from doing it. Now, listen, for the unconvinced among us, because there could be some great thrivers amongst us who are maybe not fully converted to the idea of they need to be vegan or even vegetarian. What would you say? How would you begin with that conversation with someone about what should they do?
So the thing is, I don't think you can convince anyone to be vegan or vegetarian or anything really, unless they're actually open to it. So maybe, so for some people, I think it depends also what type of learner you are. So if you're a visual learner, or if, you know, you take things in through some sort of visual input, then watching something like Game Changers would be really good, because the things I can tell you in a conversation, that is a longer thing, and it's so many different perspectives and different people involved and different takes on it. So that would be really good. If you're an audio learner, then you could listen to a podcast or something, or if you like reading, you can read articles, whatever. But once you're there and you're a bit open to it, then I would say that it's worth looking at what you eat, how you feel about it after. Well, right now I'm just sticking to diet. I'm not talking about all the other stuff. Whether you think it's worth making a change, and if so, for what reason? Because this is where the motivation comes into it. What's your passion? Are you passionate about trying to help the planet? Are you passionate about caring for all living beings? Are you passionate about your religion? Are you passionate about losing weight? Are you passionate about not getting X, Y, and Z health condition? Are you passionate about reversing a condition you've already got? And depending on that, the conversation will go in a completely different direction. So it's kind of hard to answer your question.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's a great answer, actually, because I think where we're coming to is the notion for people to ponder on of their own value system and what's most important to them. And then to ask the question at the end of it, so what's the right thing to do with what I eat and how I live? Because as you rightly just pointed out, you know, for me, probably physical fitness and well-being would be high on my list. For someone else, you know, it would be animal welfare or treating animals fairly would be high on their list. And I think these are all good reasons to be conscious and think about what we eat and what we wear and so on, and how we use the resources of the planet. But we get, as you rightly say, we come to it for different reasons. And I think being aware of your particular list of things that you consider most important is really helpful, because actually I think feeling good about life is living in accordance with what you think is most important. Where you feel bad about life, I found in my own life, is where you think something's important and you're not living in accordance with it, and you feel kind of guilty or bad or unfulfilled or irritated or whatever you feel, you know. So asking yourself what's most important to me out of all this, I think, is a really great place to start.
And I think it's great what you just mentioned, because it reminds me of something that I was thinking about earlier. So I think one of the reasons we either do what we do or don't do what we want to do is fear. Whether it's fear of what other people will say or do, or whether it's fear of our own little voice in our head telling us something contradictory to what we're doing or not doing. And I think one of the biggest things that will help anyone with anything, not just veganism, is alignment. So when our thoughts and our words and our actions align, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of us, because we know we're living the way we, it's in accordance with our core. And I can look in the mirror and go to sleep at night knowing that I've done the best I can, and I'm doing the best I can to live in harmony with those three things. And when they don't align, it's chaos. And it's that whole shame and fear and, oh, I really didn't want to, why did I do that? Or I shouldn't have done that. All of that, which is just, if we can strip that back, wouldn't life be better? See, I see that as thriving. That is an element of thriving for me.
Yeah, spot on, absolutely spot on. The thought that occurred to me while you were going through that as well is, I think it's relatively easy to make false associations and to reach the wrong conclusions.
Yes.
So, I was thinking about someone whose value isn't animal welfare or saving the planet, someone whose value is partying of an evening, for example, and associates that with drinking. I think, again, that ability to pause between stimulus and response gives us the opportunity to say, is there another way of getting that same return that I get from that behavior, and potentially without the hangover? Because we associate a certain behavior with delivering a certain result, and then we might feel a bit uneasy because it doesn't seem to actually deliver the result, even though we expected it to. And, some of these things we're talking about, there's a danger of having it in a kind of a sterile sort of holier than thou kind of conversation where, you're just not a good person if you're not a vegan. But actually, just having a bit of openness to, actually, would living a slightly different way deliver more of what I'm looking for rather than less? Because, we create these beliefs that the way we live is the right way. And then it just becomes habit, I think.
Yes.
And we carry on doing it.
I'm really embarrassed about this, but my battery's dying and I need to just turn the plug on.
Your battery or your laptop?
My laptop battery. So do you mind if I just go and do that?
I'll just busk. So everyone, what we were saying about veganism, I've never had this happen before. It's quite fun, isn't it? I suppose it was bound to happen one day. Just to continue, because we were getting to it's okay, I'm doing it myself.
Okay.
Getting to quite a deep and interesting point there, which actually it gone off veganism altogether, but onto actually how we live as human beings. And I think it's really powerful for thrivers, to get this point that we live out of habit. We create these beliefs about what's good, what's bad, what delivers fun, what's serious, what's humorous. And the essence of thriving, it seems to me, is being able to break out of those mental prisons and say, yeah, but is that really the case?
Yes.
Have I tried an alternative? What might that be like? Because I can only speak about my own personal experience. Whenever I've done that in the past, something wonderful has happened, and I've discovered a new way of being.
Yeah.
And go, oh my God, this is so much better than the other.
Yeah.
So, really stupid, simple example, right? I do love a bag of Haribo.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm advertising Haribo.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're paying you.
That's what I always picture when I picture a bag of fun. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's sweets, it's candy. And but I got into a big problem with sugar level, of just overdoing it. And ice cream was the other big one. I love ice cream. So, and traveling around the country doing training and things and staying in hotels, I would get very tired driving up the motorway. And my solution to that was to buy a bag of sugar and eat it.
Right.
And after a while, it wasn't making me happy. I was getting very, very fat and feeling very ill and getting this up and down that you talked about, crashing from the sugar and then running around hotels in the night looking for candy machines, saying, I need another boost.
Need a fix.
And then realizing what I was doing to myself. And it's so pernicious, that we don't realize it's happening. Yeah. It's happened so gradually, over years.
And then you don't notice where you got to.
And all of a sudden you're a huge person and you're wondering why. Yeah. I'm a bit less huge than I was in lockdown. But, you know, so serious point, you know, that's a silly example, if you like, of eating sweets, but it applies to everything we do, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's a silly example. It's a good one, because I think lots of people have this thing, whether it's sweets, whether it's chocolates, whether it's crisps, whether it's crackers, who knows, but everyone has it. And the thing is, you could even think crackers. How many crackers can you have? I know someone who could sit there and polish off a 3/4 packet of Jacob's cream crackers, for example, and, you know, that's quite a big packet. So
I can eat a lot of crackers.
yeah, there you go.
It's an interesting point. I don't know whether you've come across this. I've noticed that I think it's one of the issues I have with nutrition and diet and so on, is I don't seem to have that off switch that says you're completely full, stop eating. I mean, if I've got something that I like the taste of, like those big family-sized, you know, packs of crisps or snacks or whatever, if I like them, I can just keep going. I've noticed it's a problem. Other people seem to get to a point where they say, how can you do that? I'd be sick if I ate any more. And I don't seem to have that point. You know,
when you're having those things, are you doing anything else? Like, are you watching TV and eating, or are you... I'm just curious.
Yes, it's usually late evening with the TV on, yeah.
Yeah, because that might be part of why you don't realise the off switch has been triggered.
Yeah.
Because you're distracted by the TV, so you just keep...
Well, it's the movie experience of the popcorn.
I get it. and you know, one way to kind of force a pause on that, because you're not able to tune into it because you want that movie experience, is if instead of having it from the packet, you put a certain amount in a bowl, and you put the rest away, and you put it on some high shelf. I don't know how tall you are, but somewhere where it's basically you have to think to access it. And then that maybe could make you limit.
And also, here's a tip, Thrivers, also just learning where your boundaries are as well, in terms of what you personally can manage and cope with or not. Because that strategy actually for me doesn't work with those big family-sized packets of crisps. Because I know they're out there, and not only that, they're open. Yeah. It's a bit like in my drinking days, you know, maybe 20 years ago now, I'm teetotal now, but in my drinking days, you know, I'd know there was more wine left in that bottle, and it's open. Yeah. I don't even have to take the cork out, you know what I mean? So, but what I find, so I find I can't do it with that. Stuff like chocolate, I can take a cube now and leave the rest in the fridge, because I've developed this consciousness of, I do think about it before I do it. Yeah. So I've had a bar of chocolate in there for 3 months now, and I haven't touched it. And it makes me feel really good to know it's in there. Yeah. In the sense, not as a safety measure, but it's that this is great. I've gone 3 months and I still haven't touched it. You know, so it's a kind of measure of success for me. Absolutely. But I think those things will be different for each person, don't you? And learning where your boundaries are and your techniques and management techniques, if you like, where they are.
And for some people, it will be, I just can't have it in the home.
Yeah.
Because I can't deal with it. If it's in the home, I will have to eat it. And for other people, it's maybe putting it in a cupboard that is locked. You know, it depends on how you live and how you want to live. Or keeping it in the car, in the boot of the car. So if I really want it, I've got to get dressed and go out and get it from the car. You know, like it just...
I'm a big movie fan, and there's a very old movie with Marilyn Monroe called 7 Year Itch. Okay. This guy's trying not to smoke. And he really wants to, so he throws his cigarettes up on top of this very high shelving unit. Right. And the next scene is him with a broomstick trying to get the cigarettes down. So yeah, whatever works really for you. Yeah. But, so moving on from that, you know, more towards the veganism side of it. How do you work with people on that kind of thing? Because I assume you have people who are, you know, want to do it, are fairly committed to do it, but then hit practical issues with it. Do you
yeah, so I think also I'd like to touch on that holier than thou thing, because I think that kind of connects with this. So I think there is this image of vegans are like, no, you know, you must, and you're bad if you don't, and actually there are people like that out there, and there are people like that out there with anything, you know, whether it's you mustn't smoke or you must be religious or whatever. I don't think that's helpful in any way, because for someone who potentially might be open to veganism, that could turn them right off. So you're actually doing veganism a disservice, if you know what I mean. But it's also not a nice way to make someone feel. If you forget veganism and the disservice thing, it's just not nice to make someone feel like that. And at the end of the day, everyone's on a journey, and their journey will be of a different pace and a different length, depending on whatever their motivation is or whether they're visual or not. So for me, because I'm visual and I could see the images of that thing, the recording I saw in my head, that when in weeks or months to come, when I was tempted to have a bit of cake because we went somewhere and there was no vegan cake, I'd just see the cow having whatever done to it in my head, and I would just completely go back to, no, I don't want it.
Right.
But so for me, that was really powerful. And because I was visual, and that film and crying and whatever, I was able to go dairy free overnight. Whereas there's not many people who can do that. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, yay me, I'm so good, I did it overnight. I'm just saying everyone's different, so their pace will be different.
Yeah.
And you know, it might be that you have a vegan meal, just one meal out of 7 days, and that's it. And that's fine. That's great. It's a start.
Yeah.
So I think that holier than thou thing definitely not helpful in any sense of anything. And in terms of the clients, so basically they come to me with, you know, this is what I want to achieve, or I'm stuck. Even if it might not be that, I'm stuck. So what we do is I ask them about their motivations. I ask them what they want to achieve. I ask them how quickly they want to do it. If they know, they may not. And then we work from there, because if I say to you, you need to do this, and this is why you need to do it, you're not going to be in. It doesn't make sense. It has to come from you and your motivation. And also what I share with you will be different depending on what your motivation is. Yeah. So if it's about ethics, it's going to be a different conversation to you being motivated by health issues. Yeah. You know, and what you touched on earlier about just eating vegetables, and it's fine no matter how much I eat, as long as, because they're vegetables, they can't harm me. So for some people it will harm them, because they've got issues with fiber and how the body digests it and how much it can cope with. But there's not many people. But so it's not like an equation where you can just say, yeah, this fits all.
Right.
And it also depends on if they've got things like candida and all sorts of things. So
Okay, yes, so it's very individual.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Yes, and I think, ditto with the, likewise with the psychological side of it that we talked about, the motivations, the drivers, the ways people choose to live. So that, I think in summary, what we're saying on this interview for people listening is, you know, it's not a campaign or a crusade to turn everyone into the same person. Thriving is making conscious choices.
Yes.
Deciding what's right for you. And we're not saying don't eat meat, and, you know, unless you choose not to. We're saying be conscious of what you're doing, and, you know, make it a conscious choice rather than something just done out of habit, or, one of my biggest bugbears, something done out of being influenced by society and culture and the advertising industry that is telling you to do things a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly staggered by people's propensity to act as part of a herd. You've only got to look at the photos of people on the beaches yesterday to say, well, what is going on in people's heads when they say, I know everyone's doing it, so I must too. You know, there's the opposite of thriving to me. It's just being one of the herd. Yeah. So I think that's the thing. We're not trying to convert anyone to anything in particular, other than to be a thinker, be conscious.
And also, I think it's about, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? But what are the consequences of it?
Right.
Because if you're not aware of the consequences, then you could easily just carry on, you know?
Right.
So that's, I think, really quite key. So for example, I mean, there are some people who will know the consequences, but will still do whatever they want, because you could say they're very self-absorbed, or you could say, you know, they're selfish. You could use any words, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying it's a fact. Like, I'm driven by the fact that I want to be out in the sun, and I don't care whether I'm meant to be socially distancing or not. I know the consequences, but I don't care, because this hook is just so powerful. I can't ignore it. Right. And you know, that could actually be a mental health issue, or it could be I can't discipline myself issue, or it could be that I'm just greedy and I want to do what I want to do. There's many, even with that, there's different reasons, right? But there are some people who will do stuff and they know why they want to do it, but they don't actually know the consequences. And I think if people knew, those people knew the consequences of what they're eating, or what they're wearing, or the cosmetics, or the cleaning products, or whatever it is, I think some of them would actually think, oh no, hang on, I need to make a change.
Yes, I think that's absolutely spot on. That's really resonating with me. Even down to my example of the bags of sweets and the ice cream and stuff, because actually what happened with me was I had a medical checkup, just a routine one. And everything was wonderful. The only thing that came up was very high sugar level. And it scared the pants off me when she said, "You're heading for diabetes if you carry on like this." So I went to zero sugar. I just went to zero sugar, and it came back to normal, you know. But it's a really good point you're making, because without the checkup, I wouldn't have actually known I had a high sugar level. How can you tell? You can't tell by looking. No. So that whole notion of being conscious of the consequences of each action we take is it becomes a little bit of a challenge, and it becomes a bit tiring, because you now become a Google freak who's researching everything every 5 minutes, which is how I am. I can be a bit, because you want to know the consequences of everything you do, and it's not visible, it's not obvious. So we have to choose, I guess, the things which are most important to us.
And I think initially it's painful. It's like a growth spurt, which is painful, but then once you're there, you're there. So initially it's painful, that like when you go vegan and you're not used to looking at labels, and you suddenly need to start looking at labels, and you know, all the companies or supermarkets aren't helpful. They don't label it vegan, even though it is. So it's like, so you actually have to look at the ingredients. But once you do it, it's just like so easy. Once you get into a habit, so it's like, it comes back to habits, right? Forming new habits. And once you do that, then it's a walk in the park. You don't even have to think about it. But it's kind of just taking that step to get into a new way of thinking, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. So listen, we're probably coming up to the last 5 minutes or so. So I just want to give you the opportunity. Are there any particular things that that occur to you that we haven't covered already in terms of what thriving is? I mean, it's a difficult question. There's a million things we could talk about here. But what would you be bursting to say to people that we haven't already covered?
Goodness me. Oh gosh, yeah, that is hard. I think for me, I don't know about generally, but I think for me, I thrive when there's minimalism, because I love like clutter free. And I love the fact, like when I became vegan, there were certain aisles I just didn't have to go down. So I was like, yay, that's less looking at all that stuff, less noise in my head, you know, all of that. So I like minimalism. I like this journey I'm on to make my thoughts, my speech, and what I do align, because I think that harmony is just priceless. The thing about going vegan, I just think is amazing. I've never felt better. And I think that was 12 years ago, but now that it's becoming more mainstream, it's actually easier to become an unhealthy vegan because of all the processed foods and different options that there are out there. So people who think vegan means healthy, it doesn't have to. In any diet, in any form of what you eat, it can be healthy or unhealthy.
There is processed vegan food, is there?
Yeah, there's loads of stuff out there. There's so fake meats,
really?
Vegan cheese, vegan yogurt. Vegan yogurt is fine, but actually it depends on whether you get the fruit one and it's sugary and all that. You see what I mean? So there's lots of things out there, the substitutes that are processed. But even things that you wouldn't think of as vegan, crackers, they're processed, and they're vegan by accident often. You know, so there's many things out there that it's not necessarily a vegan alternative. It's just there, but they're processed, they're unhealthy, they're refined. Like the work the body has to do to digest processed, refined ingredients like white flour actually depletes the body. So you don't actually get anything from it because you're doing so much to get it out. So and that's got nothing to do with veganism. That's just there. It's an ingredient that's in a lot of things.
That's a really good point. Really good point.
So I think, so awareness about all these things, the consequences of it, pausing to think, reflect, take stock.
Well, it's just to build on that point a little bit. We were talking earlier about just being conscious enough to think about everything you put in your mouth as a way of life. You know, I mean, why would you put bad stuff in your body? You know, I had a kind of epiphany at one point where I thought, what am I doing to myself? Because we don't realize it's bad because everyone else does it. This is another problem with the herd mentality, right? But everybody else is eating sweets and ice creams and drinking beer. But you know what? Where's the problem? That's not good enough for thriving. Thriving needs to be about, but this is my body. And I get to look after it as I choose, right? And if I want it to be healthy and slim and fit and all those other things, I need to think about what I put in there. And so I started thinking about it as chemicals I was putting into my body, and asking myself the question each time, now what chemicals will I be putting in my body if I eat this thing? You know, which is where I got to, even with vegetables, actually, I just went, right, it's really simple, eat vegetables, there can't be a problem. And then I thought, pesticides. Should I really wash all these carefully, and should I go organic? And but you know, even I think even the fact you're thinking about it would then lead you to investigate the vegan processed crap you're describing, which is a bunch of chemicals in a cracker, with a brilliant marketing advertising message. You know, I mean, you know, don't be influenced. Don't be influenced. Think for yourself. That's really.
But I think that comes back to fear also, because I think people don't want to stick out. They want to blend in, and they also want to belong. Right. So if everyone I know eats bread twice a day, then why would I not have it? And then what happens if I go to their home and they give me bread, and like, what do I do? And how does that work? And what do I do instead? And this is too hard, and this is too scary. And you know, all that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that's where some people are at. And we, you know, I want to help them and encourage them to not think in that way, and actually find a new way that's better for them, rather than fitting in. And
the myths around eating as well, Heena. You know, my dad used to, he's gone now, but my dad used to say things like, you know, what you need is 3 square meals a day. An old myth about, you know, you need to have 3 dinners a day kind of thing. And I find I can go most of the day without eating, actually, because I'm just not particularly hungry. So I've tried to listen to my body and say, I'll eat when I get hungry. My body will tell me when I need to eat, you know, and but that's going to be different for each person.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
And just decide that everybody needs to eat 3 times a day. Or some people say you mustn't eat after a certain time to go to bed or whatever. But I think it's individual. I really do. And I think listen to your body. You know, if you're feeling sluggish, if low energy, if you're feeling tired all the time, there's something wrong. You know, so what I've learned to do is experiment. You know, well, if that's the case, let's try not eating so much, or eating more, or eating later or earlier, or whatever.
And you're right, we're definitely diverse, because I mean, you could put, say, a plate of vegan lasagna in front of 6 people, everyone eats it, one person will be ill, the rest of people will be fine. And it's not because they've got some sort of intolerance, it's just something in there, and combined with the way the internal stuff's going on in their body at that time, with the bacteria balances and this and that levels, and it made them unwell. But it wasn't food poisoning, because, as in, everyone didn't get it. So because we're all so diverse internally, which was all invisible, right? Like, you have no idea what's going to trigger what. And it will change from day to day, depending on the levels of whatever's going on inside and all the rest of it, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. Right. Look, we should bring it to a close. Thank you so much for a brilliant conversation. If people have questions or want to get in touch with you, is it, do you have messaging on your website?
Yes. So plantshift.com, and then there's a contact page, and I'm also on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and it's all at Plantshift.
We've got it all covered.
Easy to find.
Plantshift. That's where to go. Thank you, Heena. That was wonderful.
No worries.
Very nice to talk to you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was great.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Bye.